Marvel World Unleashed, Dylan resurrects ancient gods from myth. Please like, share, and subscribe. Episode 61. Shield. Nick Fury was pondering the meaning of the contents of the Neket Codex at this time. This part is exactly the translation that Tony sent. Since Tony sent this translation in the morning, Shield has made a copy of it. That one was used against the Book of the Dead. And the original one was in the hands of Nick Fury. He looked at the information mentioned in the translation, and his expression was extremely complicated. He didn't know whether to believe this or not. The above content goes against Nick Fury's 3 views so far. It also goes against everything that modern humans think. But if you don't believe it, how can you explain and study what has happened recently? In the first dark moment, before life was born, the original God appeared. Countless years later, human beings were born, not yet able to speak, walking naked on the earth. The winged ones brought the necessary knowledge to mankind from the sky, and they never left, but they kept watching them. The Black Pharaoh of Egypt, Nyarlathotep, everything was obtained through sacrifice. If these words are put in the outside world, they will definitely be regarded as some kind of crazy man's voice. Those who are erudite and think they know modern science will laugh at and despise these words. Gentler scholars might boil these words down to some kind of myth. But no matter what, they will not believe the words. Nick Fury sighed. He really wished he had an all-knowing and all-powerful person to tell him whether this was true or not. This torment between self-knowledge and the unknown world, Nick Fury is really fed up. Just at this time, a phone call came in. Nick Fury took it, and Hill's voice came from the other side. Fury, tonight Hell's Kitchen sent out a conflict involving gangsters. So what? Shouldn't these be left to the police? The police have gone, but they have found something bizarre at the scene of the clashes. Oh? I have passed all the photos of the scene to you, see for yourself. After hanging up the phone, Nick Fury turned his gaze to the computer screen on the side. After some manipulation, he clicked on a folder. Then one picture after another was placed in front of him. Blood dripping all over the floor, the inside of the broken bar, countless bullet holes, children locked up in rooms. Nick Fury flipped through the past, his eyes searching for something. But even with the last photo, what he wanted to see didn't appear. He called Hill again. Agent Hill, don't tell me there wasn't a single body at the scene. Sorry, that's the way it is. Nick Fury's brow furrowed. He then asked. Have the police looked for the nearby sewers, garbage bins, all the places where bodies may be hidden? Yes, I searched for them all, but found nothing. Nick Fury was silent for a moment, then said. Now that this case is taken over by you, I need you to find out the truth behind this. Okay. After hanging up the phone again, Nick Fury couldn't help but rub his eyebrows. It's really a wave of unevenness. What's going on in the world lately? Why so many weird things? But Nick Fury, who complained in his heart, did not stop his work. He looked at the pictures carefully, trying to find something unusual in it. And when he saw the big iron door of the kitchen, which obviously carried a footprint and was sunken because of it, Nick Fury's heart froze. He immediately made a secret phone call. Then an old voice came from the other side of the phone. Hello, Fury, it's really rare that you would call me, what happened? Hello Professor, I didn't mean to disturb you, but there is a case in New York tonight, and I suspect that mutants are involved in this. You send me the relevant documents. Okay. Nick Fury then passed the folder on his computer to some unknown territory in a cryptic way. He sat quietly in his chair and waited for the phone to ring, and a moment later it rang. He hurriedly answered. This is not our man, and he is not using the abilities of mutants. Okay, thank you, Professor. Okay, goodbye then. Wait a minute, Professor, are you still not going to work with us? Fury, I'm old, I don't want to go through many things again, now it's my greatest relief that mutants can live an unknown life, let's isolate ourselves from this world. There was a certain sense of exhaustion lurking behind that old voice, as if thinking of some bad past. Nick Fury was silent for a moment, and then said. Professor, something has happened recently, and the world may not be the same as before. When he finished saying everything that had happened recently, there was a long silence on the other side of the phone. After the silence, there was an old voice. I'll think about it. Episode 62. The roof of a high-rise building in Hell's Kitchen. Under night. Matt, dressed in black, was standing here, quietly looking down at the busy figures of the police on the ground. With a drop of nearly 100 meters, Matt's eyes could still see the expressions of every policeman. When he saw the police crowding to bring out the children trapped in the basement, a calm smile appeared on Matt's face. Then he looked at the little girl he was holding in his arms. The blood and dust on the other party's body have been cleaned up by him, and the girl with her eyes closed is like a sleeping little princess. If I had realized the stupidity of the past earlier, maybe you wouldn't have to die. Matt looked at the little girl and sighed softly. Then his figure turned into a meteor and fell from this tall building. Just as he was about to reach the ground, his footsteps lightly stepped on the wall of the tall building, and in a blink of an eye, his figure rose up again. A moment later, Matt came to a silent cemetery. He was looking for a tombstone. Finally, he found it. It was a grave where husband and wife were buried together. The tombstone in front of the grave is engraved with a photo of the couple, but in this photo, there is also a little girl who is smiling brightly. The appearance of the girl in that photo is very similar to the girl in Matt's arms. The only difference is the expression of the two at this time. Matt gently brushed his hand over the void in front of him and saw that the tomb was slowly opening. Inside were two coffins. Matt gently placed the little girl between the two coffins. Then he used his power again to restore the tomb. After all this last night, Matt said softly. Rest in peace. Subsequently, his figure disappeared in place. In a private house in Hell's Kitchen, Matt took off his clothes and sat on the sofa. He was casually holding a bottle of beer in his hand. His eyes were staring blankly at the ceiling in front of him. The yellow seal was at his hand. He picked it up, and the bright yellow mark on it indicated one thing, and that was that it had been activated. Matt looked at Huang Yin and was silent for a long time. But then he held the yellow mark tightly and put it on his chest. Great King in Yellow, thank you for your blessing, and I hope you will be satisfied with my sacrifice to you tonight. Matt whispered a prayer-like greeting. His face was filled with devotion and respect that had never been seen before. In the past, such an expression often appeared when he confessed to God. But now, it's different. Everything tonight gave Matt a new life. His faith, his principles, his perseverance are completely abandoned and broken tonight. He had new gods, he killed people, he performed cult-like sacrificial acts. But if you ask him if he regrets it, Matt will say seriously and seriously. He has no regrets. From today, the daredevil who believed in the principle of not killing was gone. A brand new daredevil will rise in this sin capital. He will be a nightmare for all sins. Brooklyn. Leon, who witnessed Matt's full behavior tonight, smiled. The fruit he planted in the past is finally blooming today. Matt tonight. After experiencing despair, he was born from the ashes. After all, he chose the path that Leon had prepared for him a long time ago. Or rather, from the beginning, he had no other choice. Of course, it sounds a little cold to say this, but looking at Matt's current transformation shows how precious Leon's gift is to him. Although now the system does not prompt. But Leon was sure that Matt at this time had fully believed in the existence of the King of Yellow. Leon is looking forward to how many influence points Matt will bring him when he gets involved in the next fabrication. This additional potential income gave Leon more thoughts about certain aspects. Should he find more people like Matt? And in addition to the fluctuations in his heart because of Matt, he was also a little surprised by Nick Fury's call. It turns out that there are mutants in this world. Since Leon crossed over, he has not taken the initiative to use spiritual power to probe the earth, and most of the time he is looking at others through the system. The reason for this is firstly because his mind is on the drama he made up, and secondly, because he has hidden thoughts. After all, the Marvel Universe is too mysterious and bizarre, and caution is the best choice. Because of this, he did not know that mutants existed. Leon thought about all kinds of mutants in his mind, and his heart was a little more joyful. After all, this represents more important people who can provide Leon with a large number of influence points. And when he tried to check the situation of mutants through the system, he was a little stunned. How was this different from what he remembered? In the huge Xavier Mutant Academy, the number of mutants is almost only a few hundred. Most of them are children. When Leon tried to find the X-Men in his memory, he did not find it in the academy, but on a monument. The black and white picture on it clearly shows something. Beasts, laser eyes, storms, icemen. Looking at those familiar faces, Leon couldn't help but be a little silent. What exactly have mutants of this world gone through? Episode 63. New York. Westchester County. The inhabitants of this small calm county never go near the northeast corner. Whether intentionally or not, residents always turn around when they are about to reach the northeast corner. This strange phenomenon went unnoticed. It seems that everything is as it should be. And in the direction of the northeast corner, where nothing seems to be anything, if you can see a shocking scene by some special means, there stands a huge and ancient castle. The people living in that castle also have abilities far beyond ordinary people. This is the paradise of mutants. Xavier Genius Jr. Academy. It was also one of the former bases of the X-Men. At this time, in a certain room of the academy, Charles Francis Xavier is thinking about the news he received from Nick Fury. Cthulhu, the great race of the old dominators. The words he had heard before made the wise Professor X feel deeply puzzled. If the person who said this wasn't Nick Fury, he would never take it seriously. But because he knew what kind of person Nick Fury was, that's why he can't take these obscure and inexplicable words as nonsense. After thinking for a moment, he called over some of the backbones of the current academy. These were some extremely young faces, and they were definitely not more than 25 years old. He informed everyone in front of him about Cthulhu and the old dominators. Everyone couldn't help but look different, and they didn't know what to say for a while. Then Professor X voiced Nick Fury's desire to collaborate. A male mutant said immediately, "I won't say yes, I'll never forget what they killed us in the past, and I'll never help them." "Me too." "Neither will I." Professor X understands the rejection of the outside world by the young people in front of him. After all, even he still can't forget the grief in his heart. Professor X nodded slightly, and he continued. "What do you think about what the other person is saying?" After a slight silence, a female mutant pushed down her glasses and said, "I don't think we have to worry about these things. Our lives are finally calm. We can't try to touch something unknown anymore. That could make our situation worse." "I agree. Let's live our lives honestly." The bravery and enterprising spirit of the X-Men in the past has long been lost in Xavier Academy at this time. The current Mutant Academy is like a dying old man. Conservative and weak, helpless and painful. Professor X has no objection to everyone's opinion. He's also old. After seeing many deceased people die before and after his eyes, he was no longer the wise Professor X. Now it's just an old man who wants to do his best to save the flame of mutants. He then spoke to Nick Fury on the phone again, and then expressed the opinion of the Mutant Academy. Nick Fury was not surprised to hear the same rejection as before. After hanging up, Nick Fury sighed silently. Nick Fury understood the other person's decision. After all, the other party has personally experienced the conflicts and wars between those mutants and normal people. If the identities of the two parties are exchanged, Nick Fury will make the same conservative decision to avoid the world. Those archives of conflict and war are still in the basement archives of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury had gone through the archives and knew the damage caused by the conflict. In the last conflict, the mutants suffered extremely heavy losses. Therefore, Professor X came forward and reached an agreement with the beautiful country's government. The two sides unanimously decided to erase the traces of the existence of mutants. This is the best option for both parties after discussion. X completely closes off the Academy of Mutants while using his own abilities to change the memory of people across the globe. Since then, there has been no more information about mutants. Nick Fury sighed again when he thought of this. If the government's attitude had been a little softer, things would not have come this far. At the end of the day, it's all damn politicians. Nick Fury slammed the table hard. New York, Brooklyn. After quietly checking Nick Fury's memory, Leon finally understood why the mutants of this world were so miserable. On the one hand, the strength of the mutants in this world is not as strong as Liang's impression on the whole. On the other hand, the government at that time developed weapons specifically for the abilities of mutants. But even so, he was somewhat surprised. The mutants were really beaten to the point of defeat by ordinary people. This seemingly ridiculous thing actually happened. In this regard, Liang can only say that anything can really happen in Marvel. But at the same time, Liang also thought of some interesting things. Suppose someday in the future, these mutants came back to life. What kind of scene would that look like? This whimsical idea may be a dream for others. But for Liang, it is not. Episode 64. While Nick Fury was still frustrated by Professor X's reply, Hill had already arrived at the bar. She took over the scene with her team and dismissed everyone in the surrounding area. She tried to investigate surveillance in the bar, but it was found that all surveillance had been breached. This made Hill feel a little embarrassed, but immediately the news came from the team members. In the police station of Hell's Kitchen, there are criminals who claim to know who caused the accident at tonight's bar. This made Hill rush to the local police station immediately. After a peaceful exchange with the criminal, a name appeared in front of Hill and the agents present. Daredevil. SHIELD headquarters. When Nick Fury heard this name, he immediately launched an investigation into Daredevil. SHIELD has so many eyeliners and means. Soon, they were locked down to a person through surveillance everywhere. The person in that image is none other than Matt. Nick Fury looked at the photo in his hand, and he didn't want to believe that the person on it was the murderer behind the tragedy at tonight's bar. After all, judging by the picture, the other party is just a blind lawyer who looks very weak. Visit the lawyer tomorrow, 25 Hill. Good. Then Nick Fury handed the photo to Hill in front of him. After Hill left the office, Nick Fury began to look at the information his men had collected about Daredevil. It details Daredevil's various acts in Hell's Kitchen. It also includes the comments of local residents of Hell's Kitchen on the internet, which are basically all positive. There are also confessions about criminals. These criminals captured by Daredevil all mentioned a characteristic of Daredevil: never kill. After seeing this feature, Nick Fury couldn't help but frown a little. As a well-versed human being, he knows all too well how much trouble such seemingly kind actions can bring to everything around him. However, judging from some details of the bar scene tonight, it seems that something has changed in the Daredevil who never kills. Nick Fury looked at Matt in front of him and was a little silent, and then his eyes became a little warm. He wanted to recruit the other party. All along, he was actually a little dissatisfied with the power of S.H.I.E.L.D. Although for ordinary people, the people in S.H.I.E.L.D. are top agents. But if you really run into someone with special abilities like Matt, S.H.I.E.L.D. employees are dwarfed. Even if he still has Natasha and Clint, how many people can S.H.I.E.L.D. find out who can compare with these two? Nick Fury thought about the previous conversation with X. All along, the power of mutants was what he dreamed of. But unfortunately, because of the previous matter, it is absolutely impossible for the two sides to cooperate in a short period of time. But Matt in front of him gave him a surprise. After looking through the information just now, he had determined that Matt's personality was good. One is a lawyer who often helps weak people in their lawsuits during the day. One is a vigilante who puts on a disguise at night and punishes evil and promotes good everywhere. The combination of these two identities is exactly the talent that S.H.I.E.L.D. needs. While Nick Fury was thinking about Matt, the top floor of a magnificent mansion in New York, a bald man whose body can almost be described as a giant is receiving information about the Hell's Kitchen riot tonight. There is his territory. Daredevil? Oh, I remember, it's the little bug that's always active under our noses, right? Although the bald man was laughing when he said this, the momentum coming from him was difficult to relax. He is like an unclimbable mountain. When people see it, they will naturally feel afraid and withdrawn. Yes, Mr. Kim, and that's exactly the guy. Wesley, it's over to you, find him. Yes, Mr. Kim G. Kim said and got up from his throne. He walked up to James Wesley, and the difference in size between the two was like a standing bear coming to a hunting dog. Wesley, what is Vanessa doing now? Jin's intimidating face showed a heartfelt smile when talking about Vanessa. Ms. Vanessa is selecting paintings for the tomorrow exhibition. Help me book a private room at Moss's restaurant. Yesterday, Vanessa said she wanted to taste Japanese food. Okay, so do you need to clear the scene? No, Vanessa doesn't like that. In the underground world of New York, all criminals know one thing clearly. Whoever you mess with, never try to mess with Vanessa Mariana. Read violent novels, just go to Felu Fiction Network. Because it was Wilson Fisk's wife. This all-American underworld overlord loves his wife to the extreme. If you mess with Wilson himself, you will only face death. That messed with Vanessa Mariana. What you face is an abyss hell far more terrifying than death. After dawn, Matt got dressed and planned to go to work. Although his eyes have returned to normal, Matt intends to continue disguising himself as a blind man. Otherwise, the sudden restoration of sight by a blind person is too compelling. But suddenly he heard footsteps coming from downstairs. The uniform, well-trained voice Matt immediately became alert, his eyes narrowed slightly, and then through the door he saw Maria Hill walking towards him. The other party was wearing a black leather coat, looking extremely sassy, and behind her was a small group of black-cloaked people, each with a bulge at the waist, obviously carrying a gun. Matt immediately realized that he was being targeted by the authorities. Because if it was a gangster, it would never come to the door in the broad daylight. Matt collected his kind mind and walked straight to his door. Without waiting for Hill outside the door to knock, he opened the door himself. This made Hill a little stunned, but then said to convenience. "Hello, Matt Murdock, I am a subordinate agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill. I came to you this time to learn about something, and I hope you can cooperate." "Of course." Matt made way for the other. Hill then walked into Matt's room. She observed the overall layout of the room and so on in an instant. These are instinctive reactions that belong to agents. "Coincidentally, I have to go to work later. Can I call my partner first? I need to ask him for a day off." "Of course, please." Matt dialed the phone, and before Fergie could speak on the other side of the phone, he took the lead in saying that he had something to do at the law firm. Fergie naturally said yes. After hanging up, Matt sat down in front of Hill's 910. "I wonder what Agent Hill is trying to ask?" Matt asked with a smile. "Nothing, just something about your relationship with Daredevil." "Daredevil? That's really a celebrity in our film." "Matt Murdock, you're Daredevil, right?" Hill's words interrupted Matt, who looked at Matt with a serious face, and Matt smiled softly after a brief silence. "Yes, I'm the Nightman." After knowing that the other party is official, Matt knows that he has been exposed. It is useless to continue quibbling. It's better to simply admit it. While Matt was being interrogated by Hill, Leon in the bookstore was discussing with Jessica Jones where to go. Jessica's research project ended, so she also got a period of vacation. In order to make up for the incomparably lonely heart that felt without Leon accompanying her during this time, she proposed to Leon to go out with the two of them for a while. Leon readily agreed. The bookstore itself is not busy, so why not spend more time with the girl in front of you? During this time with the other party, Leon could see that the other party had completely fallen into him. Leon did not expect that the two relationship could develop to this step. And Jessica Jones really gave a lot to Leon selflessly. Since this is the case, it is better to enjoy each other's love. Accustomed to the role of the black hand behind the scenes, it is still good to change identities occasionally. Episode 65. When Leon and Jessica arrived in Greece, Matt in New York made the decision to join S.H.I.E.L.D. After a conversation with Maria Hill, Nick Fury went to see Matt in person. It's just that the scene of the meeting between the two sides at that time was a little awkward. Nick Fury originally wanted to imitate the last scene where he quietly sneaked into Tony's house. But what he didn't expect was that Matt, who returned home, treated him as an enemy. If Nick Fury hadn't explained quickly enough, Matt's fist would have smashed into him. But even so, Nick Fury has also always maintained his usual pretending to be mysterious attitude. These Matt didn't care. What he cares about is what Nick Fury said he will enjoy after joining S.H.I.E.L.D. Information sharing, real-time intelligence processing. These can be said to be very important for him to fight criminals. And Nick Fury also promised to keep his identity secret. At the same time, Matt's daily tasks are also given from Nick Fury himself. He doesn't have to deal with other S.H.I.E.L.D. chores. It can be said that Matt has become a secret agent who only obeys Nick Fury. After that, Nick Fury took Matt to a secret location on S.H.I.E.L.D. for a strength test. The results of the test made Nick Fury quite satisfied. In terms of purely physical performance, Matt far surpasses Natasha and Hawkeye. With a little training and agent experience, Matt will definitely become the best agent under him. Although Nick Fury is curious about how Matt's body became like this, he also knows that everyone has their own secrets. Nick Fury doesn't care that his agent has secrets. What he wanted was for these agents to be used for himself. Especially for Matt, who has just been recruited, Nick Fury knows better that he should keep silent and calm. And Leon, who was far away in Greece, was not surprised to see Matt joining S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, in a certain Marvel comic, Matt made the same decision. Now it's just overlapping. However, Matt's joining S.H.I.E.L.D. brought a lot of convenience to Leon. He was still planning how to get Matt in the game next time, but now it was much easier. As an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's normal to get involved in some bizarre events, right? Leon, concentrate, we're taking pictures. Suddenly, Jessica's voice interrupted Leon's thoughts. He hugged Jessica with a smile and smiled. sorry, I was just fascinated by what I saw. Well, the view in front of you is indeed beautiful. Jessica's gaze also looked into the distance. At this time, the two were on the top of the sacred mountain of Olympus in northern Greece. The breeze drifted around the two, and the white clouds seemed to be touchable at will. From here, you can see a vast green valley with towering trees, and on both sides of the valley, majestic and steep peaks envelop the valley. Wild goats and wild deer are shuttling among them, and the vitality are displayed here. The sun rising from far away gives everything a golden glow, and the trance adds a bit of divine meaning to the place. But unlike Jessica, who simply appreciates the beautiful scenery, Leon looks at the scene in front of him and feels that this is very suitable as a venue for a future fabrication. Time turned to nightfall. This is the Union Building in New York. If you were to pick a few strong conglomerates in New York, Union Tower would be one of them. Because the owner of this building is called Wilson Fisk. Of course, more people like to call him Kimhi. There is a high-end banquet tonight on the top floor of the Union Building. Celebrities from all walks of life in New York were invited by Wilson to celebrate Wilson's wife's birthday. Most celebrities dare not come. Only a very small number of people dared not to give Wilson face. For example, the boss of Stark Industries, Tony Stark. At this time, the top floor hall is very lively, and under the interlaced flow of people and cup lights, it is full of scenes of climbing and echoing sounds. Members of Congress, Pentagon military personnel, court justices. These rare characters can be seen here at this time. And around them are essential vassals. Young and beautiful attendants flexibly shuttled between them, constantly serving them drinks. Occasionally, some attendants agreed to some private requests. This kind of high-end banquet is an important channel for these young girls to win opportunities. Backstage at the banquet. Read violent novels, just go to Cthulhu Fiction Network. It's a quiet powder room. Wilson was waiting at the door, his height of nearly 3 meters filled him with majesty and oppression, and there was no one in the underground world who was not afraid of this terrifying giant. But at this time, his face was full of smile and softness. Like a big bear waiting for honey from its owner. A moment later, a crisp high heel sound came from the room. The smile on Wilson's face grew even stronger. Then the door of the dressing room opened, and a beautiful woman appeared in front of Wilson. She has long golden hair and a soft face, and the gentleness in her eyes is even more intoxicating, and her tall figure is wearing a white tight long skirt, which sets off the holy and beautiful. "How's that, Fisk, do I look good?" Vanessa asked with a chuckle, looking at the man in front of her. "Good looking. Pretty. My Vanessa is the most beautiful woman in the world." Wilson quickly nodded in admiration, his face had a sincere demeanor, and he did not lie. When a man loves a woman to the extreme, she is the most beautiful woman in the eyes of this man. That's too much. Vanessa is different from ordinary Western women, she has their extremely rare modesty and self-restraint, and it is just like this that she has won all of Wilson's love. "No, I'm not kidding, in my eyes, no woman can compare to my Vanessa." Okay, let's go out quickly, don't make the guests wait." Vanessa chuckled and took Wilson's arm. Wilson nodded and walked out. When the two appeared in the banquet, they immediately became the focus of the audience. Those big people abandoned the pursuit of those around them and came to the side of the two to praise. They became new vassals. Wilson and Vanessa smiled and answered the crowd. At this moment, suddenly a female attendant accidentally did not step on it, and the red wine glass on her tray flew forward, and coincidentally, the red wine glass just fell at Vanessa's feet. In an instant, her long white dress was stained with a little red wine. This scene made Wilson's eyes instantly filled with killing intent and anger, and he suddenly turned his head to stare at the female attendant, and just as he was about to say something, Vanessa tugged on his sleeve. "It's okay, Fisk, she's not careful either, so be it." "Well, since Vanessa said so, forget it." Vanessa's words made Wilson give up the killing intent in his heart, but it did not mean that his anger dissipated. He glanced at James Wesley, who was standing on the side. The other party immediately understood. After James said a few words into the headphones, several gentle-looking female attendants came to the already frightened female attendant, and they comforted the female attendant before taking him away from the scene. "Okay, let's cut the cake," Vanessa said with a smile. Everyone present also expressed their goodwill, seemingly completely forgetting what had just happened. Then the attendant pushed a delicate piece of huge cake. Wilson, as the main knife man, personally cut, Li Zhao, a piece of cake and handed it to Vanessa. Vanessa, you are the protagonist of today, the first piece you come to eat. Thank you, Fisk. Vanessa took a bite of the cake, and when she swallowed it, she wanted to cut a piece of cake for Wilson as well, but at this moment, she felt something wrong in her belly. The next moment, she fainted in Wilson's arms. This scene made the originally peaceful and lively banquet atmosphere instantly become solemn and dangerous. Holding his wife tremblingly, Wilson tried to call for the other person to wake up, but what responded to him was the blood slowly flowing from the corner of Vanessa's mouth. This made Wilson immediately realize that the cake just now was poisoned, and his eyes were torn, and the killing intent in his chest was fully displayed. He smashed the cake with a punch in a fit of rage, and then shouted angrily, "Doctor! I want a doctor! Wesley! Blockade of the building! Find out who poisoned it. I'm going to smash his corpse into 10,000 pieces." At this moment, Wilson's gentle gesture all dissipated. At this time, he is Gene He. It's the Kim who scares everyone. Episode 66. Faced with Wilson's fury, James Wesley immediately issued a blockade order. The next moment, heavily armed security personnel surrounded the front and back doors of the Union Building, and in the banquet hall at the top, the presence of a large number of gunmen made the atmosphere here extremely tense and dangerous. "Wilson, you can't restrict our personal freedom." Suddenly, a voice sounded in the crowd attracted Wilson, who was in a state of rage-anger at this time. He gently lowered Vanessa in his arms. Then he stepped in front of the man who spoke. His body of nearly 3 meters stood in front of the man like a high wall, overwhelming people. "You want to go, don't you?" Wilson said slowly. His expression had lost the excitement and anger at first, but it was replaced by a look that made people more frightened and frightened. It is a complete indifference to life, and it is a pride that defies everything. I just wanted to say that you are not acting like this." The person who spoke could no longer speak as comfortably as he had just done when he faced Wilson. He stammered, his eyes filled with incomparable fear and remorse. At this time, he finally remembered another name of Wilson. Kim He. "It's good that you don't behave right, I appreciate your courage," Gene said softly, and his hand reached out to the man who spoke. The man wanted to retreat, but Jin's large, thick palm was like a cage that could not be avoided. He was caught by Kim and caught. Kim grabbed the other's throat and slowly lifted it. The man's expression became painful and hideous because of this. He wanted to ask for mercy, but couldn't say a word. The suffocation and pain made his face purple, like an eggplant. Gradually, his torso was shaking unconsciously due to lack of oxygen. Although the celebrities watching this scene around showed fear, none of them dared to speak at this time. Just as the man was about to die, Gene suddenly let go of his hand. He said calmly, "I won't kill you, because this is the birthday party for Vanessa, but you'd better pray from now on that nothing happens to Vanessa, otherwise I can't guarantee that your final body will be intact," Wilson said and returned to Vanessa's side. The man who survived the disaster was panting on the ground, his eyes full of fear. The people around him were moving away from each other. They looked at him as if they were looking at a dead man. Wilson held the unconscious Vanessa silent, his face returning to calm. But the irrepressible sadness in his eyes was illustrating his feelings. Finally, the doctor came. Wilson hurriedly made way for him, and after the doctor's diagnosis on the spot, they gave an answer that made Wilson almost unconscious. Vanessa is dead. Wilson's huge body was almost unsteady on his feet, his bare head instantly turned red, and the green tendons on it kept beating. All this tells the sadness and anger of the overlord of the underground world at this time. He hugged Vanessa's body again, and the temperature of the corpse still made Wilson cry. Wilson hasn't cried since he was 4 years old. Because he always thought it was a sign of weakness. But today, the man finally showed his weak side again. "Not Vanessa," Wilson whispered like a wounded beast. None of the celebrities watching this scene dared to go up to comfort each other. And after almost half a minute, Wilson stood up, with Vanessa in his arms. His face was sad and full of despair, like someone who had lost everything. He ignored the celebrities present, and he walked straight towards the exit of the banquet hall, with Vanessa in his arms. James Wesley stood in front of these celebrities at the scene in time. With a polite smile on his white, bespectacled face, he continued. "Please also understand Mr. Fisk's mood at this time. We are doing our best to track down the murderer who caused all this, and we will let you leave as soon as the results appear, but please rest assured that we will compensate you accordingly." "It's okay, I understand and support it very much," Me too. Me too. In the face of the words of the white-faced scholar in front of him, none of these celebrities expressed dissatisfaction. Then Wesley pulled away, and he wanted to be by Wilson's side at all times, in order to accept the orders of the other party. At this time, Wilson and Vanessa were in the bedroom. Wilson looked at Vanessa, who lay peacefully on her clothes, and he tried to smile, but the corners of his mouth could not curve in any way. He looked at the sleeping woman, and he knew that the only person in the world who really understood him would not wake up. This is unacceptable to him, but how? Even though he has infinite wealth and power, how can the distance between life and death be a mortal can leap over? Vanessa, it's my fault, I shouldn't have held this banquet, the bite of cake should have been eaten by me, why should I give you the first bite? Oh my God. If I'm wrong, punish me alone. Don't just take away my beloved. In the two-person bedroom, Wilson did not hide his tears. And at this moment, he saw a little red wine on the edge of his wife's white dress. Wesley, are you there? Wilson said as he looked out the door. The other party's voice then sounded. Yes, I am, Mr. Fisk. The female attendant who knocked over the red wine before, kill it. Yes, Mr. Fisk. And the man who just spoke, feed the dog. Yes, Mr. Fisk. Quietly, the fate of the two people was trivialized. But whether it was Wilson or James Wesley, there was never any strange look on their faces. Read violent novels, just go on the Phelan Novel Network. Time passed by minute. Wilson was always in the room with Vanessa. Finally, Wesley's words from outside the door made him stand up. Mr. Fisk, I caught the poisoned murderer. Wilson walked out the door calmly. Take me to him. A soundproofed room in the Union Building. When Wilson and Wesley arrived in the room, the security guards saluted the two, and Wilson might have greeted them in the usual way, but now he was silent. In his pupils, emotions called anger and killing were boiling. A man who was tied up was pushed in front of him. Under the light, the man's face turned purple and blue, apparently having been interrogated. Tell me, who sent you? Wilson said as he looked at the man calmly. But what responded to him was a mouthful of spit from the man. This scene made the people around almost move, but under Wilson's gesture, they all stood in place. It seems that you are a tough guy, very good. Wilson wiped the saliva from his body and then said to everyone in the room. You all go out and let me talk to this tough guy alone. Yes, Mr. Fisk. Wesley then led his men out of the room. No one knows exactly how Wilson and the man communicated. It was only when Wilson came out again a moment later that he had already obtained the intelligence he wanted. Wesley, summon everyone for me. Okay, Mr. Fisk, who are we targeting? All of New York. Wilson said calmly and indifferently. He strode away, and then a curious subordinate went to take a look in the room. With just one glance, he vomited. Because what lay on the floor of that room was no longer human. It's a lump of mashed meat and rotten meat. There were fist prints on it. The timing was wrong at first, when an old brother accidentally subscribed. I apologize to you here, I'm really sorry. It's a pity that Felu's background can't query subscribers, alas. Episode 67. When Leon and Jessica returned to New York, it was clear that the atmosphere of the city was in danger. Pedestrians on the street are afraid of something, and the shopkeepers who open their shops are also closed. This scene made the two feel strange. After Leon randomly flipped through the memories of passers-by, he knew what had happened in New York recently. Simply put, the recent gang clashes have been extremely frequent. In terms of scale and frequency, it is far beyond what it used to be. Some people took advantage of this gangster conflict to implement a zero-yuan purchase incident in it. This made Leon feel a little funny about this. What else can he say? This is American. And Jessica was helpless about this. She grew up in the United States and was used to the wild atmosphere here. The two didn't talk much about it, and then they parted at the door of New York University. After returning Jessica, Leon once again focused his attention on the recent gang conflict in New York. He hadn't paid much attention to New York recently, but he didn't expect that this return would give him a surprise. Soon, Leon knew that 227 knew the causes and consequences of the gangster conflict. Through the void, he saw Wilson Fisk, who was sitting at the top of the Union Building at this time issuing orders, and also saw Vanessa Mariana lying in the crystal coffin at this time. The dead woman was the trigger for the current New York gang conflict. Her death was a result of other New York gangsters uniting against Wilson's dominance. At that birthday party, they had hoped that Wilson would eat the poisoned cake. But I didn't expect the other party to give up the first bite to Vanessa. Wilson's fierce retaliation ensued. After understanding all this, Leon withdrew his gaze. At this time, he was quite emotional in his heart. For Wilson Fisk, his understanding of the other party, in addition to the identity of the supervillain, is that the other party values his family. In the original Marvel work, the other party is extremely fond of Vanessa, no matter which universe he is in. It can be said that the other party is a real wife and a man. But it is precisely because of this shining brilliance that many Marvel fans like each other. Leon recalled various deeds about Wilson in his mind, and suddenly the corners of his mouth hooked, and a smile appeared. Previously, the characters involved in his fabrication were all positive characters. So why not a villain? For Leon, it doesn't matter whether the decent or the villain is good. As long as it can provide him with a large number of influence points, he is a good person. His eyes looked again at Vanessa, who had her eyes closed. Since Wilson was so reluctant to get the other party, then he doesn't mind giving the other party a chance, but whether he can seize this opportunity depends on Wilson's creation. He doesn't take sides over characters in his plays. Which direction will the drama go? All this depends on the protagonist's own efforts. It's night. Wilson Fisker sat up from his heavy office chair. Wesley, the rest is up to you. Tomorrow I'm going to see the Russian gangsters in New York City wipe out, understand? Yes, Mr. Fisk. The skinny James Wesley said respectfully to the person in front of him. Wilson nodded and left the office. Instead of going directly back to his bedroom, he first came to a solemn room. The room is decorated with various petals, and pure white plain yarn is hung everywhere, obviously conflicting colors, but after the design of famous artists, it is extremely suitable. Wilson came to the crystal coffin directly in front of the room. He looked at the sleeping beauty lying in it with a sad face. Even though several days had passed, Wilson still couldn't remain calm in front of Vanessa's body. In the coffin, Vanessa lies peacefully and quietly, wearing a long, blue-tinged tight dress, which Wilson and Vanessa wore when they first met. Wilson reached out and gently stroked the crystal plate on the surface of the coffin. It was like stroking Vanessa through a coffin. Vanessa, I'm on the verge of cleaning up the other gangsters in New York, and if you were alive, you wouldn't want me to do that. I don't want that either, but they killed you, and I can't forgive them. They have to pay a terrible price for you. Vanessa, I dragged you down. If I didn't choose to come forward and communicate with you on the first sight of meeting you, then you wouldn't have died. Wilson spoke softly into the coffin. He knew Vanessa couldn't hear, but so what? Some words are addressed both to the lover and to himself. After a long time, Wilson restrained this whisper to himself. He stood in front of Vanessa's coffin and stared silently at the woman in front of him. According to Christian custom, in a few days it was the day when the coffin would be buried. Wilson was not religious. But he was willing to respect Vanessa's faith. It's just that the thought of never seeing the face of the person in front of him in the future makes him can't help but cut his heart like a knife. He left the room in silence. Back in his room, Wilson lay on the now empty bed, falling into a deep sleep alone. I don't know how long it took, and suddenly a voice sounded in Wilson's mind. He could tell it was Vanessa's voice. He tried to call out, but couldn't make a sound. And then he also discovered where he was. It's a gray space, with nothing figurative, just vague dotted lines floating around. But Wilson was unaware of the abnormalities around him. People who are in dreams do not realize that they are dreaming. An urge that came out of nowhere made Wilson step forward. His thick and tall body didn't know how far he had gone, but he didn't feel the slightest sense of exhaustion. Because whenever he walked for a while, Vanessa's voice would sound. As he moved farther and farther, the voice became clearer little by little. This gives him endless motivation. Finally, he saw a picture. Read violent novels, just go to Felu Fiction Network. At this moment, the excitement and joy that welled up from the bottom of his heart made him cry inexplicably. It's a beautiful forest. Tall trees, dazzling sunlight, swinging weeds, bright flowers. The scene is enough to enchant some poets. But for Wilson, his attention will always be focused only on the beautiful silhouette in the forest. It was his Vanessa. She was smiling at Wilson, her arms open towards Wilson. Fisk, what are you doing? Come here. Vanessa was shouting at him. Wilson hurriedly answered, but when he reached out and tried to hug Vanessa, the silhouette suddenly moved away from him and into the woods. No, Vanessa, don't leave me. Wilson immediately chased after him. He walked through the trees that got in the way, his eyes always looking for Vanessa. When he couldn't find it anyway, a touch of skirt suddenly appeared in front of him. Fisk, why can't you come yet? Wilson looked up at the smiling girl and immediately walked towards the other again. But with his steps, Vanessa's figure retreated again. Wilson kept walking towards Vanessa like a kite with a broken thread. But he couldn't get close to each other anyway. Even so, Wilson did not give up on his chase. Finally, he followed Vanessa through the obstructive woods. Then appeared in front of him was a towering cliff. Vanessa was standing on the edge of the rock wall at the bottom of the cliff. With a gentle smile on her face, she seemed to be waiting for Wilson's arrival. Vanessa. Wilson stepped forward slowly. This time, Vanessa did not dodge again. She opened her arms and waited for Wilson's hug. But just before the two were about to meet 0.3, suddenly a big earthquake shook. The rock wall of the cliff was shaken out of a pitch-black cave where nothing could be seen. Immediately afterwards, an extremely strong suction force suddenly came from the cave. Vanessa was about to be sucked in like a kite with a broken thread. Fisk, save me. At this crucial moment, Wilson grabbed the other man's hand. Vanessa, I will never let go. Wilson tried to pull Vanessa back, but the suction of the cave was terrifying. Even Wilson's huge body was a little unstoppable. The next second, because of Wilson's sudden slippery hand, Vanessa was sucked in. No. With a terrified cry, Wilson woke up from his sleep. His expression still carried the residual panic and fear of that moment. Cold sweat wet his back. He was completely sleepy. Episode 68. After dawn, Wilson came to his office again. James Wesley immediately reported yesterday's results to the other side. The gang affiliated with Wilson succeeded in annihilating all the Russian gangs stationed in New York. He was still a little excited when he said it. But when Wilson heard about this impressive achievement, he did not have the slightest mood swing. Go on, next eradicate the Italians. His calm and majestic voice echoed through the vast office. Wesley was immediately down. His eyes as he looked at Wilson were filled with admiration and admiration. Only such a person is worthy of his follow. When Wesley left, Wilson's figure came to the floor-to-ceiling window of the office. He looked at New York City in the sun, but his mind was in yesterday's dream. After a moment of silence, he sighed. Nothing can go back in time. Whether it's reality or dreams. He was to be separated from Vanessa. But there was one thing he could be sure of. That is the underground world of New York City, and from now on there will be only one force. In the past, he was so benevolent, he mistakenly thought that the rest of the gang leaders did not dare to oppose him. But now he really realized he was wrong. And this mistake also cost him irreparably. If this is the case, then he must correct the stupid acts he has committed in the past. Wilson's eyes revealed ambition and killing intent. At this moment, even if he sees the tiger and the lion, 26 will be terrified. Matt came to Leon's bookstore again in the morning. Looking at Matt's posture that was still disguised as a blind man in the past, Leon couldn't help but feel funny in his heart. The other party is still groping for progress, and what he does is exactly what a blind person should be. Lee, did you go out some time ago? Matt asked casually as he came to the counter. Yes. With that little girlfriend of yours? That's right. Leon handed the swiped book to Matt, who clamped it under his armpit. Where have you all been? I went to Europe, I went around a few countries, and came back. I really envy that you can go out so leisurely. I still have to go to work every day to deal with cases. It's really sad in comparison. You're a lawyer, no kidding, who wouldn't want to be a lawyer? Matt smiled when he heard this, and he then reminded. By the way, Lee, you have to be careful during this time. The streets of New York have been very chaotic recently, and there are gangsters fighting everywhere. Yes, no one cares. What are the officials in New York for? Official, you know. Matt made a joke, then said goodbye to Convenience and Leon and left. Leon then sat down and continued to read. As Matt walked around a corner, he happened to see a group of gangsters who were preparing to attack, hiding behind a door, seemingly waiting for someone to come out. With the door ringing, a man with a mouthful of Sicilian English strode out. But the moment he walked out of the door, a bullet was ushered in. Then came the fight. Matt couldn't help but feel helpless when he saw the scene. Regarding the gang riots in New York during this time, He also hoped that some police departments would take responsibility, but unfortunately, they once again disappointed Matt. In the face of such a big riot, the New York police are as blind as if they were completely indifferent. It's like someone has said hello in advance. Seeing the police doing so, Matt also reported the incident to his current boss, Nick Fury. He hoped that S.H.I.E.L.D. would intervene. But since this is just an ordinary gang conflict, Nick Fury has no desire to participate in it. His main energy now is still on the Codex Neket. This made Matt very helpless. However, although Nick Fury did not provide actual human help, he provided Matt with information. As long as Matt needs it, then S.H.I.E.L.D. will send him some gang conflict locations. Then Matt will go alone to fight sin. Now that Matt has seen the scene of the gang conflict with his own eyes, how can he let it continue like this? He came to an unoccupied corner, reached out and pressed on his body, and the originally loose suit immediately turned into a black combat suit, and also put a hood on Matt. This is one of the benefits given by Nick Fury after joining S.H.I.E.L.D. This greatly saves and facilitates Matt's changing time. Then he came to the scene of the firefight. His appearance made the two groups who were fighting with guns stunned, but then they turned on Matt together. It's Daredevil. Damn, shoot him. Countless bullet storms hit Matt, but Matt did not avoid it. His figure rushed into the crowd like a black shadow. Then he listened to the crunching sound, and one gangster after another was twisted by him. By the time the last gangster also popped to the ground, there were no more living mouths now. Since his transformation, Matt now faces criminals with guns who no longer stay alive. When Matt had done all this, he was about to leave, but suddenly there was applause from the alley. He looked up, and it turned out that nearby residents were applauding in gratitude for him. Matt waved at them and left. When he walked to no man's land again, the ordinary figure of a blind lawyer reappeared. It's night. James Wesley is reporting to Wilson on today's results. Our men took down a total of 12 Italian strongholds today, and the operation was generally smooth and successful, and the overnight demon reappeared and took out our group. Daredevil, I remember he did the incident at the second block bar in Hell's Kitchen, right? Read violent novels, just go to Felu Fiction Network. Yes. Difficult bug, can't we catch him? At present, the other party is much stronger than before, and he is no longer afraid of bullets, and it is difficult for our people to deal with him. Wilson tapped his fingers lightly on the table, and then said, Since we can't deal with him, let's deal with him in a different way, contact some newspapers and media, you know what to do. Okay. After chatting with Wesley, Wilson walked out of the office. He visited Vanessa routinely, and in 3 days, Vanessa's body was about to be buried. Although he was reluctant, he could not be helpless. After the visit, he lay down on the bed and closed his eyes. This time, he dreamed of Vanessa again. It is still that beautiful forest, and the other party is still waiting for his arrival. Wilson was once again caught in the chase of her. Then I came to the cliff again. The shaking occurred again, and the cave reappeared. Once again, Vanessa was sucked into the abyss-like cave. And Wilson in the dream woke up again, at this time 920 outside the sky was not fully light. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, and then went to wash his face again. Dreaming the same dream twice in a row can feel strange to anyone. Wilson recalled the forest and cliffs in his dream. He was puzzled by this. Why does he dream about this place repeatedly? He had obviously never been to such a place. Wilson looked at the picture of Vanessa at the end of the bed, and he stretched out his hand to stroke it slowly. Vanessa, is that what you're trying to tell me? Wilson couldn't help but have this thought. After sunrise, Matt gets dressed and plans to go to work. But just before he went out, he suddenly heard the discussion of his neighbors. Daredevil turned out to be a superpower, and has he done so many bad things before? Who knows, but if you think about it, it seems normal for a superhuman to do something bad with his superpowers. Anyway, if it were me, I would do it. Quite so. Listening to these discussions, Matt frowned. He turned on his phone, and then saw that various media outlets were pushing news about Daredevil. Superpowers, wanton violence, molesting women, robbing money. Looking at these news that had nothing to do with him, Matt's face was extremely ugly. He immediately realized that someone was smearing him behind this. Immediately, he spoke to Nick Fury on the phone. The name of a consortium appeared in front of him. United Real Estate Company. Episode 69. If Stark is a well-known technology company in New York and even the United States. That United Real Estate Company is one of the most well-known real estate companies in the United States. They are in the real estate business of more than half of the United States. More than 70% of the neighborhoods in Hell's Kitchen alone are owned by this company. United Real Estate can be said to be a supergiant among real estate companies. After learning that the person behind the media control was United Real Estate, Matt was a little puzzled at first, but he immediately thought of the recent gang conflict. If he finds one thing that he is likely to have a grudge with United Real Estate, then it can only be the recent gang clash. He guessed that the other party should be related to the gang, but when he learned the details of Wilson Fisk, the chairman of United Real Estate, from Nick Fury, Matt found that he was thinking too simply. Something to do with gangsters? Simple. The other party is the biggest gang leader in New York and even the United States. Since you know, why don't you arrest this guy? Matt questioned Nick Fury across the phone. Nick Fury was not angry either, and he explained calmly. You know, in our country, capital often represents power. Fisk's heritage is very deep. From Congress to the Pentagon, there are countless officials who have been paid by him, in this case, what to arrest him. And this person will always handle things very cleanly. He will never end up in person. You are a lawyer, you should understand that this kind of person is very difficult. Nick Fury's words silenced Matt. After a moment, he spoke. If I have concrete evidence, can you arrest him? Of course, but this evidence is not easy to find. I'll find it. Well, I wish you success. After hanging up the phone with Nick Fury, Matt calmed his breathing, which was a little restless due to anger. Once upon a time, Matt knew that there were some shortcomings on the part of the government. But he never thought about it. The drawbacks behind this can be so great. For the first time, Matt was irreparably disappointed in the country. After breathing calmly, Matt walked out the door and headed to the law firm. Everywhere along the way, he could hear the talk of Daredevil on the street. This made his heart extremely emotionally complicated. When he was an undergraduate, he read the book, The Rabble. The characteristics of the mass group mentioned in it are vividly displayed at this moment. Blind obedience, ignorance, ignorance. When Matt arrived at the law firm, even his friends were talking about Daredevil. Although the other party did not criticize Daredevil like the masses, the spread of another layer of his identity still made Matt feel uncomfortable. He had the feeling of walking in the dark, but suddenly being illuminated. Soon. It's nightfall. Matt changed into his combat uniform as usual, and this time, he planned to go to some gangsters to ask about Wilson. But when he came to a place where gangsters gathered, the other party actually called the police. Gangsters. Alarm. These two things happened together. And what made Matt feel even more outrageous was that the speed of police dispatch was unprecedented. In less than 10 minutes, he was surrounded by a circle of police. How could this succession of things keep Matt from understanding that they had colluded? Just wait for him to take the bait. Facing the muzzles of a group of black holes, Matt felt very irritated. If these people were gangsters, he would definitely have rushed into the crowd. But these people are police. Daredevil, you have been surrounded by us, now raise your hands and surrender, we will treat you with leniency. The policeman's shouts received no positive response from Matt. Matt took a deep breath and asked with a bit of anger. You know that they are the ones who should be arrested. Matt pointed his finger at the gangsters who called the police. We just heard that there was an attack here, we don't know what you mean. From the current situation, they called the police, and you are the target of the attack, so you are our target. Fact. You really deserve this police suit on you. Matt shouted angrily, which made the leading officer immediately say. Please be respectful to us, this is a warning, now you better obediently come and let us take it, otherwise we will shoot. Oh, then you guys shoot. Matt said and jumped deep, and immediately jumped upstairs nearby. Then in a few ups and downs, his figure disappeared into the vast night. The police officer at the head was not surprised, he copied the walkie-talkie and said. The report is informed, the criminal Daredevil has been arrested and absconded, and now applies for a wanted warrant against him. Okay. After receiving the reply, the police immediately evacuated the scene. The gangsters laughed at each other and taunted Matt. After leaving the scene, Matt wanted to go to the next gangster gathering point, but at this moment, a wanted order broadcast throughout the city suddenly appeared on various large screens between floors. People walking normally stopped and looked at the big screen. The screen is precisely about Matt's wanted warrant. Super criminal Daredevil resisted the police arrest and absconded tonight, hereby issue a wanted warrant. If you see Daredevil figure, please call the police in time, we will give you $200,000 in compensation. The moment he saw this wanted warrant, Matt knew that his future actions would be difficult. He slammed the wall in front of him. Fack. Top of the Union Building. Wilson nodded slightly as he listened to the report from Wesley. You're doing a great job, so that there will be countless people to help us deal with Daredevil. I'd rather see how he can make trouble for us. Yes, Mr. Fisk. Continue to surround and suppress the gangsters of other forces. I want to see that the gangsters in all New York are only us on the day Vanessa is buried. Read violent novels, just go to Felu Fiction Network. Yes, Mr. Fisk. After speaking with Wesley, Wilson left the office. He visited his princess as usual, and then went to his bedside. He did not fall asleep immediately, but was thinking back to the previous 2 days' dreams. Wilson wondered if he would have the same dream tonight. If he does, he might take some action. For example, to find the location of the dream. Moments later, he fell asleep. The same dream reappeared. Wilson in the dream did not know that he was having the same dream. He still followed Vanessa to the cliff. The moment the tremor came again, Wilson remembered everything. He looked at Vanessa, who was about to be sucked into the cave again in front of him, and made a decision. Vanessa, I won't leave you alone again. Wilson hugged Vanessa and jumped into the abyss-like cave. The darkness eroded him in an instant. He could feel himself rolling, so he tried to protect Vanessa in his arms. After not knowing how far he tumbled, Wilson finally stopped. But the Vanessa in his arms disappeared. This made Wilson immediately try to find the other party's figure, but at this moment, a dark red light suddenly lit up and took all his attention. He turned his gaze to the light. What I saw was a shining partial trilateral octahedron. It was suspended above a stick-shaped altar, and a dark red mysterious light continued to radiate outward from its body. In this dark and claustrophobic space, only Wilson and this mysterious partial trihedron are located. Wilson's mind was subconsciously attracted to the trilateral octahedron. He stretched out his hand and slowly approached the trilateral octahedron. He didn't realize what kind of expression he was on at this time, nor did he realize how seeping the darkness around him was. And the moment he touched the trilateral octahedron, a fierce wind suddenly blew in this darkness. Then he heard the flapping of wings. It's like some kind of giant winged creature flying. When the wind stopped, a black paw appeared in front of Wilson to buy. Wilson followed the paw and looked upwards, and through the dark red light of the triangular hedron saw the full picture of the creature. Just a glance. This underground overlord in the United States developed a mood called fear. Episode 70. In Wilson's life so far, he has seen many strange things. The woman who was divided in the night, the man who disappeared in the secret room, the child who was strangled by the rope until his eyes fell off. These horrible things were either what he did or what he experienced. But these things are invariably something that human beings can understand. Or rather, these are all things that humans can do. They do not go beyond the human imagination, much less beyond the framework prescribed by human reason. But at this moment, Wilson really saw the creature that should never exist in the rational world of man. It was a presence that resembled some kind of giant bird, or rather resembled an ancient pterosaur. In this dark space, the full size of the creature could not be seen by the light of the trihedron alone. Therefore, Wilson can only approximate its height to be at least 8 meters. There were no feathers on its dark skin, a facade dyed purely by darkness, and the huge wings folded together securely, and Wilson had no doubt how huge those wings would be when they were spread. And in its huge brain, there are no facial features that ordinary creatures should have. It only has eyes. But it's not so much the eyes as the huge, terrifying round hole split into 3 petals. They take on the shape of a fret distributed on its face. In that round hole, what is presented is not the so-called pupil. It's pitch black, thick black flame. The raging fire is boiling and burning. An evil and icy aura was emanating from its eyes, burning with black flames. Under the illumination of the dark 913 red light of this triangular octahedron, the pitch-black burning flame had a few more wisps of indescribable sublimity. And at this time, those 3 eyes were staring at Wilson. Wilson swore that he had never seen such a terrifying creature in his life. Even in all his nightmares so far, there would be no monster more terrifying than the creature in front of him. Wilson tried his best to remain calm, but the corners of his mouth twitched subconsciously. The all-American overlord of the New York Underground? Command? Those names that are louder than one in the real world are like a bunch of bubbles in front of this terrifying monster. One poke and break. It's just a joke. Just as Wilson tried to tell himself that it was just a dream, the terrifying monster spoke. Its voice does not exist in all of Wilson's perceptions. That's not the sound that humans or any kind of creature that should exist on Earth can make. When it spoke, the pitch-black space was faintly shaking. The weird thing is, obviously Wilson had never heard a similar voice, but he could understand what this monster was saying at the moment. What a beautiful love. The admiration from the monster made Wilson feel both shocked and inexplicably relieved. Humans are like that. When a creature can communicate, humans subconsciously relax themselves. Who are you or what you are, CGDJ? Such humble gestures of speaking have not existed since Wilson was 7 years old. But the heartfelt fear of this moment made Wilson show great trepidation and awe. The monster let out a crow-like hoarse laugh. It says in evil and demagogic words. You can call me Daredevil, but I prefer my real name. What is your real name? Nyarlathotep. Night Devil said slowly. Wilson was surprised because he had never heard the name before. But his face did not dare to show anything. Lord Nyarlathotep, I extend my highest respect to you. Wilson quickly bowed to the Night Devil. The Night Devil squeaked and let out a maniacal laugh, and it said in a playful voice. Human, you don't know me, do you? Yes, although I don't know you, I know that you must be an existence that I can't touch, and I deserve to show you supreme respect. Ha 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 ha, interesting humans, I haven't seen such interesting humans since Nevlenka. Nevlenka? The name that came out of the mouth of the Night Devil made Wilson silently remember it in his heart. Lord Nyarlathotep, I wonder what you are looking for me for? Wilson asked humbly and respectfully. No, you're wrong, it's not me looking for you, it's you looking for me. The voice of the Night Devil echoed in this dark cave, and the doubts in Wilson's heart became even stronger. But then his gaze and all his mind were attracted by the figure on the claws of the Night Devil. Vanessa. At this moment, Vanessa, who had disappeared before, finally appeared again. Only this time she was in a place that Wilson could never touch. Her body was unconscious in the claws of the Night Devil, and her beautiful face frowned faintly, as if she was enduring some kind of pain. You want to resurrect her, right? The words of the Night Devil easily hooked Wilson's heart like the devil of hell. He looked at the terrifying monster in front of him in shock, his eyes full of ecstasy and disbelief. But then he suppressed his excitement and asked. Yes, Lord Nyarlathotep, I want to resurrect her, what should I do? He bowed his head respectfully and asked sincerely. Wilson Fisk, you must understand that everything comes at a price, doesn't it? Yes, I understand, I am willing to give everything for her. Please tell me how to do it. Wilson looked at the terrifying eyes of the Night Devil with hot eyes, and the love for Vanessa at this moment made his heart exceed the fear of the creature in front of him. But to his disappointment, Night Devil did not answer his question head-on. With a squeaky laugh, the terrifying monster left a word and disappeared. You'll find out sooner or later. Read violent novels, go on Cthulhu Fiction Network. Immediately afterwards, Wilson woke up from his dream. This time, he didn't break out in a cold sweat like the previous 2 times. His eyes were filled with strangeness, and he wondered if what he had experienced was real. Is that really a dream? Wilson recalled the monster he had seen. He could recall every inch of the other party's body, especially the shock and horror brought to him by those 3-petal eyes, which made him unable to believe that it was simply a dream. He took a deep breath. If that's not a dream, that means that Vanessa has the possibility of coming back to life. Wilson clenched his fists. His chest was filled with high excitement and surging heat. That must not be a dream. It must not be a dream. Wilson Fisk kept saying the same thing to himself. Having experienced the departure of his beloved in his arms, he is unwilling to give up any possible hope at this time. Even if that hope seems outrageous, he is willing to believe it. Nyarlathotep. Wilson kept chanting these 2 names, and he could no longer stay in bed. He got dressed and went straight out the door. Then he called James Wesley. Wesley on the other side of the phone could clearly hear sleepiness, but he was still holding his spirits. Wesley, I have 2 names, you help me look it up. Yes, Mr. Fisk, please say. Wesley demonstrated the highest professional integrity as a secretary. Wilson then informed each other of the names of Nyarlathotep and Nevlenka. Okay, I'll do my best to investigate. Hard work on you, Wesley. Wilson said into the phone with a somewhat deep tone. Please don't say that, all this is what I should do as a secretary. Rest, I disturbed you, you can not use it tomorrow morning. Yes, Mr. Fisk. After hanging up with Wesley, Wilson exhaled softly. He must admit it. Apart from Vanessa, Wesley is perhaps the most important person to him. Then he went to the room where Vanessa's body was stored. He looked at the woman in it tenderly through the crystal coffin, and his eyes were full of love. Vanessa, I may be able to see you again, is all this your guidance to me?